My name is Babette Wills, and I am the farmer owner of Bigfoot Food Forest in Montague. My husband and I purchased this land in 2019. It is 36 acres of APR land. Well, actually, there's 18 acres of APR land and then 18 acres of conservation land, forest. And so I just came to farming like 4 years ago. Obviously, I'm old enough that it's clear that I had a history of doing something different before I came into farming. I was an economist, and I really felt that I wanted to do something that gave back to the environment. And I was trying to think of what do I think is like one of the most important things that you can do if you want to give back to the earth and to the environment. I decided it was to be a farmer. So that's how, and to make a farm that we call ourselves Bigfoot Food Forest, because rather than think of humans as sort of having a bad influence on the world around us, and we need to be as small as possible, have the smallest possible footprint on the earth. I like to think of ourselves as being able to contribute positively to the richness of everything around us, including biodiversity. And so that's one of the reasons why we chose permaculture as as the way we farm, because I believe that that's a way of farming where you try to mimic natural systems, but grow food, but also with a focus on growing food for humans, and at the same time leaving space for natural processes. And there's a lot of focus on soil health, and the backbone of a permaculture system is permanent tree plants, such as trees and shrubs, and that's how we get to the forestry part of our farm. Here we have a nursery of young nut trees. So what we want to do actually is to grow chestnut trees and walnuts and northern pecans and some northern almonds. Those are all trees, although they're not grown very much in New England today. They are very amenable to the climate here, and in fact there's a whole group of sort of I wouldn't call it a renaissance, but sort of an innovative little group of farmers who are starting to grow chestnuts, which can be a part of that you can make bread flour out of it. You can use it in your casseroles and your meats. It's a really nutritious food, as of course are walnuts and all the other nuts. So our trees, we buy them. We are a very, very low budget farm. So we buy our trees when they're this tiny, and they're about as cheap as you can get them from the nursery. And then we initially, being a complete novice at farming, I would take those teeny tiny little trees, and if you just show the field here, I would like plop them out in the field and hope that they would grow. Which in the first year we found out that's not actually workable. So in the first year, I think 90% of our trees died. It was very sad. And we've learned that actually giving them a little bit of time in a more controlled environment where we can monitor, these haven't been weeded in a little while, but they were weeded earlier in the summer, and we give them water when they need it. They're in a nice little bit of soil. And now that they're about 4 or 5 feet tall, when they lose their leaves in the fall, we're going to plant them out, and they will have a little bit more corpulence to be able to deal with the elements and whatever comes their way. The trees, we also have fruit bushes, but we also have chickens and sheep. And the chickens do a couple of things for us. One is that they are a source of short-term income. We sell eggs at the Greenfield Farmers Market, and we have an egg CSA here in Montague. Because the trees obviously are not going to have nuts for another 5 years or so. And the sheep are part of our soil improvement program. We have very sandy soil here, and the sheep, by grazing around, we do an intensive rotational grazing underneath and in between the trees. By grazing, they stimulate the grass to grow more, to throw more roots in the ground and to grow faster. And also, of course, they're leaving all their nice droppings to increase the fertility of the soil. So let's go look at the chickens. About the chickens a little bit. When we first started having chickens, we actually had them in our suburban house in Boston. And there were a couple of things that I really wanted to achieve. One was I did not want the work of cleaning out the chicken coop every week, because I knew it was, and I also didn't want a stinky chicken coop. So I wanted a clean, nice smelling, low maintenance chicken coop. And the other thing is that I didn't want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to let the chickens out. I'm kind of a lazy chicken farmer, actually. And I wanted the chickens to have a happy chicken life. And I was also inspired by this guy up in Vermont, the Vermont Composting Company. He raises 600 to 1,000 chickens just on food scraps. We went up and visited him, and we talked about his system, and then I kind of downscaled his system for food scraps for feeding these 600 to our 4 in the suburbs. So currently what we actually, anyway, so let's first look at the setup, and then we'll get back to what the chickens eat. And I hope that one thing you'll notice, which you can't see on the video, of course, is that it does not smell of chicken poop in here.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, it's kind of an earthy smell, which is different from most chicken coops. And the way we achieve that is with this this deep litter system right here. So when they're on their roosts at night, they're pooping in and doing all their business into this sort of very nitrogen-rich pile, which we every morning we throw some more stuff on it, and so that's how we keep it clean. Now the way that we don't have to get up at 5 or not, and we take this out once a year. So once a year, when it's actually coming up at the end of sort of mid-November, when we have the maximum amount of leaves, we take all of this out. We put it in a pile. This is fantastic compost for our fields. So we have, like, as you can see, we have like 3-4 cubic yards of compost right here that is enhanced from the chickens, and then we bring in, like, literally a couple of truckloads full of leaves. We spread the leaves out over here, and then if we go to their main area, we also spread the leaves out here. And actually we have this really fun thing for the chickens. Oops. Is this this round thing here. So we fill this up with leaves, and then the whole winter they are busy taking all the leaves out and spreading them out for us. We like our animals to work for us. Everybody on this farm needs to do work, and the chickens, they lay eggs for us, of course, but they also spread around their own. They take care of their own, what is it called? Leaf spreading around in the summer. You also notice that this is like this huge enclosed run here. It is closed from the top. And we also dug down 2 feet and put down a hardware cloth. And so it by itself is predator proof. And that allows our chickens just to go to bed when they feel like it and to get up when they feel like it, which is nice for them and nice for us. We actually close this up. We do the opposite of, we have our, so in the winter all of this plastic covers the whole thing, so it's actually quite nice and warm and toasty in here on many days, and then in the summer we roll it back and things are open. And also here in their little, where they sleep, We also have the hay in here for the sheep. Oh, and then at night, the sheep are in here with the chickens. And that actually works really well because the chickens kind of scratch through the poop and eat any worms that might be in the chicken poop. And the sheep are an additional protection for the chickens for any small predators that might want to get in here, like weasels or something. Also here where this sort of little barn area has a hay loft, so it stays warm in the winter. And also in the summer, we put up this very inexpensive sort of grass fence to shade them. It really keeps things much cooler than anything else could. But in the winter, we take that away, and then we roll down some plastic. This is facing south. And so this actually really has a nice passive solar gain. We have a chicken coop with passive solar gain. When we were living in the suburbs, we fed our chickens completely on food scraps. You need about 1 pound to 2 pounds of food scraps per chicken per day. And an average family produces about 10 pounds per week. So you can kind of do the math and figure out how many families would support your flock. But we have a little food scrap collection route in Montague Center. We go around to 28 people, and that gives us enough for about a quarter of their food, which is great. We'd love to expand that to about 100 families. So if you live in Montague Village, please call us. And the other thing that they get is spent grains from a brewery. So this is from Brick and Feather Brewery. You can see we just actually went to the brewery. So we have a ton of of these things. And this is actually fantastic stuff. These are spent grains. I'm going to let Hannah smell this. It has this really nice fermenty smell. So our chickens are getting like chicken kimchi because this lacto ferments. And so besides giving them nitrogen and fiber, the grains give them a lot of micronutrients because of the fermentation. And then to supplement that, we buy corn from a farmer down in the Quabbin area. But we'd like to sort of move away more and more from the corn because growing corn for chickens takes up a lot of land that could be used for growing human crops. So I really don't like buying grain for animals. Another way that we're going to get away from feeding the grain is an agroforestry project, which is the chicken food forest. So you are looking here at the space of the future chicken food forest. It's about 1/3 of an acre. And I did a lot of research on what are trees and shrubs that grow, that produce fruit that chickens love, or leaves that chickens love, and that are very, very prodigious or prolific in what they produce. So it doesn't have to be like super nice tasting. It just has to have lots of calories and lots of food and be easy to grow. So what we're going to have here is we're going to grow crab apples, persimmons, mulberries, and then a whole bunch of comfrey. Comfrey is great for pulling up nutrients from down in the soil, but they also have a complete protein for chickens, which is kind of weird because it's a leaf, but there it is. So I'm really, really excited about this because I think that this little 1/3 of an acre will provide like between 30 and 50% of the food for our chickens during the sort of 6 spring to fall months. So when the chickens go into the chicken food forest, they're going to be out here 6 months of the year, possibly also sometimes in the winter, and then they're going to go back in at night. But as anybody who's had chickens in a chicken yard knows, chickens can turn any verdant piece of land into a desert with their scratching and with their over-nitrification. So I really did some thinking about, so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to move the chickens from we're going to seesaw them back and forth. They'll spend 2 months in like area A, which is 1/6 of an acre, and then 2 months in area B, allowing area A to recover. And also I thought about how many plants are needed to actually absorb all the nitrogen that the chickens are going to deposit. So we kind of did some math there. And I think we'll probably also have to honestly throw down things like leaves and wood chips to kind of deal with their scratching, or branches. So yeah, so if you're interested in doing a chicken food forest yourself, which I would love to see lots of them going on and people learning from each other. I did write like 3 or 4 blogs on our website, bigfootfoodforest.com, and you can also actually, there's a couple of references in those blogs to some other people around the U.S. who have put up their experiences and their food forest design. Also, that I just love to do, and I'm just in case somebody's interested, I build a lot of little structures, and what we see here is our sheep car. So this is a little structure that you can move around 10 sheep in here. It's very simple, made with a couple of cattle panels and conduits, cost probably $150, and you can roll it with your sheep and get them down the road if you need to do that. This can easily hold lots of broilers, and with the wheel in the middle and then these handles to pick things up with, it's still not that easy to move around, but it's much easier than the chicksaws that you have to literally drag over the field. So this was funded by a grant from the American Farmland Trust. In the field where in the future we're going to hope to see our walnut trees and our chestnut trees and our pecan trees growing. Now we had this, so this is a field that we talked about in the agroforestry program, what to do here. And I just want to walk as we go. It's very sandy. The soil is missing a lot of nutrients. And so one thing that you could do is what people have suggested to us to do is, well, you could till the whole field or sort of, I don't know, put the nutrients in with it. All you need to do is rent a tractor. And I'm like, so one day when we were walking around with Jono and Seva from the Agroforestry Project, we noticed that within this field, which is generally not very productive, there's not a lot of biological activity, we noticed there were some islands. If you look over there, you see that shrub? That's an autumnberry, but it is surrounded by all kinds of other plants. So it's like a little island of fertility. And as we were talking with Jono, we thought, fertility islands. So that's what we've started to build, rather than focusing on the realization was for the trees, those little trees that are out there, we're going to go over there. Each little tree doesn't actually need all that land to be fertile. It just needs the land where it's growing to be fertile. So what we did is we marked out the spacing of the trees, and then last year we took all these wheelbarrows of wood chips, and we just put down these pile of wood chips around every tree, or everywhere where a tree was going to go. So here's a nice wood chip pile. And this has been, these wood chips have been decomposing over the year, and then this spring when we planted the chestnuts, this little area was it's just really crumbly. It's very dry now, but it's much better kind of soil than what you see in the surrounding areas. So I'm kind of playing with this soil fertility idea, and the idea is, or fertility islands, is that you start with a small area and kind of focus on that. It's like a little mini garden, and plant your tree in it, and then as your tree grows, the roots of the trees are going to expand, but also the the biological activity will expand with the crown of the tree. And we have these planter cages around all our trees, because this is where we rotate our sheep. They just, even though these are baby trees and are super delicious for sheep, they don't bother them at all because we have these cages around them. And so they can actually just graze even while the trees are small, and hopefully and of course when the trees are bigger, they will continue to walk through this field and do all the good work that sheep can do in an orchard. We have actually a piece of land that looks like there's a lot more biological activity going on there, and there is. It's nicer soil, and there's a lot more plant life, and so and it's moister. Last year, if you can see the tiny little cages over there, we planted some of the northern pecans there. Northern pecans like moisture soil. The chestnuts are here in the drier area. But then in the spring, when we had this wet spring, it actually was sort of a little. It was just a wetlands for like 6 weeks, and the pecans that were on the edge of the wetlands, where maybe their roots were in the water for 2 or 3 weeks, survived, but the ones that are in the middle died. So yeah, we either have to figure out a way to kind of have something draining there, or we got to figure out how to work with that. If you see way back in the corner there's a solar panel that was also funded by the American Farmland Trust, because we don't have any water here in this field. And so way in the back there's a well, and there's a pump that is driven by solar, and we have a sort of water coming. So that allows us to, it makes it easier for us to water these trees should we need to. So one of the, in starting this farm, and especially being such new farmers, we really had to learn everything from the ground up. I think some of the take-home lessons that we've learned is that, put time on your side. Like, you don't need to make a huge investment in tractors and hiring a lot of labor in order to get all your trees in year one. Just if you do it in 2 or 3 years, then you can do it yourself. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about how to keep our costs down, because profit is sales minus costs. And if you can keep the costs down, you can worry a little less about how much you're selling. So that's a really important thing. Coming to visit the farm, and allowing me to tell my story a little bit. It's been super amazing. And also, maybe another thing I want to give as a takeaway for people is join as many little farm groups as you have time for, especially ones that help you think through your farm. So the agroforestry was sort of the first group that I joined, and it was really inspiring to see other farmers, to realize that other farmers are struggling, to get some help, to get a little bit of money. And in fact, I'm part of 2 farmer cohorts this year, because it's just so incredibly helpful. I mean, there really are a lot of resources out there, American Farmland Trust, NRCS, the agroforestry, like NOFA. And these things are, they're there for the farmers, and other farmers are there for each other. And I would encourage everybody who's getting into this business to really lean into that. Thank you.